Hi. This is a short documentary about identity as it is defined in RPGs. Primarily MMORPGs, but RPGs in general. I'm also going to talk briefly about video games. Video games have contributed more to my life than my family, and that's not an exaggeration. While this is short, my intentions are pretty broad. I really want to destigmatize the notion of addictive video games. Since video games began, everyone's been against them for the most part. In the 90s there was that whole problem with ratings and blood and gore. People still want to blame violent video games for violent acts in real life. This is mainly perpetrated by neoliberals who think that intervention is the key to every problem. In fact, it's far more likely that video game addiction is a reaction to neoliberalism. But I digress. Essentially, what I'm interested in is how the challenges presented in video games and the character creation aspects of RPGs in particular allow for the formation of identity. What you're watching here is actually a fairly typical weekend for me, battling hordes of orcs while listening to Japanese music. This particular song is Vanilla by Gact. Anyway, that's enough about me. Character creation is an important bonding experience that takes place between the user and his character. Character often serves as a proxy for the user, or an extension of the user's desires as escapism. However, this is not always the case. In fact, in some instances, choices are purely aesthetic. This is Runes of Magic. It's a standard WoW clone MMORPG that can be downloaded and played completely for free. As you can see, there's a fair amount of choices you can make with your hair color, and there's various sliders that affect your appearance to some extent. Most of the appearance options, however, don't really give you a chance to make your character ugly or grotesque in any way. However, a game can hardly be called a role-playing game when you can't play anything except some sort of fantasy supermodel. This is Guild Wars, perhaps the game I've spent the most time with. I must admit, I do tend to make my characters attractive in the conventional sense. I could go on a tangent about why this matters, but I'd rather show you an exception. This is Mount & Blade. It's created by two people and released for a very small amount of money, primarily through digital distribution. There are a few things that are interesting about this game. For one, it places an emphasis on your background. Character statistics are determined more by where your character comes from and how he spent his early life. Mount & Blade takes place in a realistic medieval environment. It tries to simulate the harsh conditions in all aspects of its presentation. Character creation here is not strictly supermodels and hair salon hairstyles. You can make your character look really old. For the most part, this completely defies the conventions of most RPGs. It makes sense that it's an indie game. The game mechanics themselves are also fairly complicated. What's interesting is that the more popular games tend to be the ones that have the more basic, easily recognizable morality systems. Mount & Blade is also considered a sandbox game in the sense that you can pretty much go wherever you want and do whatever you want. There's no overriding narrative, and as such there can be no morality. Character immersion therefore occurs through the player's own relationship to the world, and is not shaped by narratives in any way. This would be an interesting social experiment if it had an online component. This is already fairly long, but I thought I should talk about one very important aspect of character bonding. While it's definitely true that there is some level of relationship to the character via the physical appearance, physical attributes, armor, etc. It's actually a far more visceral and lasting bonding experience that occurs directly through overcoming challenges. This is what games like World of Warcraft, Runes of Magic, and essentially any video game has over games like Second Life. What you're watching here is a Halloween event for the game Champions Online. That's my character. He's a ice controller. As you can see, the combat is very tactical, and succeeding can be very rewarding. You form a sort of bond with your character. My ice attacks became an extension of my will. That might sound cheesy, but that's actually fairly essential to becoming a good gamer. People who don't really get video games tend not to realize this. Guild Wars is almost entirely based on accomplishments. You reach the level cap very early in the game. The rest of the time, you're simply presented with challenges, and your only motivation to continue is to complete those challenges. Leveling up is not an option, so you simply have to use your skills. The game has over 1,300 skills, and once you complete it, you can play again in hard mode. Essentially, Guild Wars has this mode called Vanquishing. To vanquish an area, you have to enter it and kill every monster in the area. This is incredibly difficult, because on hard mode, monsters do twice as much damage, have twice as many hit points, cast spells twice as fast. You really have to be organized. There are certain overpowered builds that can get around this, of course, but where's the fun in that? This was a vanquish I did with someone in my guild, a close friend of mine. That helmet means that we completed the map. Now we do our dance of victory. The immersion factor is easily dismissed. There's something very rewarding about doing some fictional dancing while drinking some fictional alcohol after completing a fictional challenge. In closing, I just wanted to say a few things. First off, role-playing games are addictive. It's true, but it's in no way similar to alcoholism. The notion of video games being entirely unproductive is not only outdated, but insulting. Without the chance to test certain possibilities within a fictional environment, I'm pretty sure I would have no clue who I am. Thanks, have a nice one.